going on, guys? Welcome back to Pure EVil MMA. I'm your host, like always, Evil Eddie from MyMMAnews.com. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, whether listening to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, or if you're watching the video cast on YouTube. Subscribe down below. And if you don't know where the podcast is, I make it so simple, guys. All you got to do is go to MyMMAnews.com. You guys on the video cast can see I'm all bundled up in my warm sweatshirt. It's now the 4th of November. October just flew by, like really. It felt like we had a week in October, and all of a sudden it's already November. I'm seeing things for Christmas. It's like I barely got to even enjoy Halloween. So, tomorrow we got UFC 217. Just wrapped up Bellator 186 here. It went down at Penn State University. Eric Cowell was down there from MyMMAnews.com. So if you want to see the recap, get all your updates, make sure you go check out MyMMAnews.com for your daily dose of MMA. And I want to thank all of our followers on Twitter. I just reached 4.1 thousand followers on Twitter, so make sure you guys are following me on there if you aren't already at evil_echo. That's EVIL_ECCO. Now, guys, I just mentioned UFC 217 is just hours away now. The weigh-ins went down earlier this morning, but one of the biggest things to come out, I don't know how to feel about this. Cody No Love releases footage of him and TJ Dillashaw sparring. Now, this is old footage, number one. Number two, it's kind of a dirty thing to do. Cody No Love didn't like it when Thomas Almeida's team was talking about his knockout when Cody No Love got knocked out in his early career when he was just 20 years old. So for him to really release that footage, and it was just so grainy. One of my listeners or followers on Twitter was like, what, did they record this on a potato? It just seems like they recorded the video through another phone, so it's like double shitty. And you can't even tell if it's really Cody or TJ, but the bottom line is, it's just like a dirty move. I mean, not only is it old, but you also have to keep in mind that TJ Dillashaw has grown so much since then. Moving and training with Dwayne Bang, he's evolved. Even people think that fight with Dominic Cruz that he had, he actually won. Even when I was watching it, I scored that fight for TJ Dillashaw upon review, which I really don't recommend doing. I mean, once you really see the fight, you should really take it for what it is at first. But I do like to review the fights. And when I did understand how Dominic Cruz was able to come ahead on the scorecards. But TJ Dillashaw has been showing so many great improvements with his last couple of fights, beating Half Yellow Sunset in that rematch. And then also the last fight against John Lineker. So now we got Cody No Love versus TJ Dillashaw. That footage was just released. And there was also footage that I personally released of Jimmy Rivera sparring TJ Dillashaw, and people were saying the same thing to me. That's old footage. We really can't base anything off of it. So I really have to step back and say, I hope that this doesn't come. Fighters don't make a habit of this. Media doesn't make a habit out of it. I know that I contributed to it, but I'm just not for it. I don't think that's the right thing to do. It really all started with the Paulie Malignaggi sparring tapes coming out, and we just seen the trickle-down effect with other fighters pulling out old footage from the woodworks. And when it's so grainy like that, it's just, it still hypes the fight up, but it's just dirty and doesn't seem right. So take it for what it is. I wouldn't judge much off of it. Like, after watching that, don't go, oh, that's a sure thing that Cody No Love's gonna win. No, it's old footage. We don't know what they've been working on, and at the same time, they're not going 100% there. You don't know if TJ's going 40% and then Cody's going 100%. And also, I had some backlash as well when I said this on my Instagram at Pure EVil MMA. People were like, yeah, haven't you been seeing some of the headlines lately, though, Ed? Haven't you been seeing that TJ Dillashaw is one of the dirtiest sparring partners that was at Team Alpha Male, possibly ending Chris Holdsworth's career, which he actually came out earlier in the week on MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani saying TJ's on juice. So there's just so much going into this fight. I think that's the number one fight I'm most excited to see. But let's not forget, Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Rose Namajunas is also on this card. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to be asking some of our guests about it, and then I'm going to be previewing it at the end of today's podcast. Let's jump into our first guest of the day. And I was really excited about this one. Peter Ox Christensen is joining us right now. Let's jump in. All right, guys, I got a special guest with us here today on Pure EVil MMA. Peter Ox Christensen, who is a boxing and MMA ring announcer, former radio on-air personality, entrepreneur. I want to introduce you to our audience here. Peter, how have you been?
I'm doing fantastic, Eddie. Thank you, man. It's just Peter Christensen. The ox that kind of stuck. I forgot to take that part down.
Yeah, I wanted to ask
But I
you about
still
that.
respond to it to this day.
I wanted to ask you, like, is that like your personality, like the ox? Do people call you like the ox backstage or something like that?
Not really. It's just kind of a name that stuck a long time ago. And so just because of the nature of the biz, Peter Christensen just seems to work a little bit better not having that nickname. Trying to make it a little bit more professional, a little more corporate friendly. That's about it. But people call me Ox quite a bit.
Now, so just to get like a little bit of a background on you, you know, I've been following you for a while on Twitter. Everyone that's watching the video cast right now can actually, you know, subscribe to your channel at Fight Night Voice. That's FIGHTNIGHTVOICE, Fight Night Voice. So, you know, I had an interest in this as soon as I was into MMA. You know, the ring announcers, the referees. I've always had interest in like, you know, having you guys come on. But I gotta, you know, scratch your head really. On this one, you know, how did you get into this business?
You know, it's something I just sort of accidentally realized I might be good at. A friend of mine told me I have a good personality for it. And so what I actually did, I bought ringside seats to a fight night in Vegas. It was for Lion Fight Muay Thai.
Love Lion Fight.
Yeah, they're awesome. They've got a great product. And so after the fight night, I approached the ring announcer. His name's Sonny Franco.
Oh, Mr. Sonny Franco, everybody. Yep, love that guy.
Yeah. Oh, you know him. You seen his work?
Yeah, every time I see him at Foxwoods, you know, we always catch up backstage and stuff.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah. Sonny's a good dude. So I just approached him after the fights, and I told him that it's a business I was trying to get into, and he was quite receptive to it and said that he wanted to help me. And I owe a great deal of my success and what I've been able to accomplish to him. So he got me one of my first gigs with a grappling organization called Grappling X, and they're based out of the Temecula area, but they do jiu-jitsu tournaments up and down the state of California.
So of course, all of our listeners are gonna want to know what's your background in combat sports. When did you really, you know, jump on board with combat sports? Because really, our community out there, so it's still very underground, as mainstream as it is. You know, with you know, my mom watching Ronda Rousey or Conor McGregor, a lot of the diehards and mostly even the casuals, it's really an underground thing. So, you know, when did you jump on board with combat sports? What made you decide that, you know, this is what you want to do within combat? I mean, obviously you're at Lion Fights checking out the Muay Thai. So, you know, when did that all start?
Well, it goes back to a couple things. You know, I had an interest in martial arts as a child, and that's where I dabbled in karate as a kid. And that's not to be a knock on karate. I just didn't enjoy the school I was at. But then after that, what I had done, I was actually worked as a radio DJ or air personality in Sacramento, California, and Modesto and other small markets. Did that for several years. And I also presented several live bands and interviewed bands on the air. And it was a lot of fun. I just didn't enjoy what came with the industry. But it was a lot of fun being on the air and doing that gig. But I left that years ago. And then the next step as far as combat sports, I was watching season 2 of The Ultimate Fighter, more like the highlights, the marathon of it, before season 3 was starting, featuring Ken Shamrock versus Tito Ortiz.
Yeah, that was a great season. Matt Hamill was on that season.
Good, man. It was hard for me because I was cheering for Team Shamrock, and we all know how that went.
Yep. You know, that's a really good season. A lot of people were on board. That was really a breaking point for you know, us combat sports fans with The Ultimate Fighter. How that you know, broke. Everybody was watching Forrest Griffin versus Stephen Bonner. It really changed the game there. So yeah, season 2 is when a lot of people found themselves becoming a fan of the sport.
Yes, and what happened was I knew casually what MMA was. I knew it as more something like no holds barred, and I just thought it was more like these two guys getting in a cage and just slowing down and trying to beat the crap out of each other. And I didn't realize how much of the disciplines of martial arts went into it. And what I was really amazed about when I was watching The Ultimate Fighter, how well conditioned these athletes are, and what amazing flexibility and core strength they had. And then I just had an appreciation for them right away. I was thinking, oh my God, these are some of the best conditioned athletes in the world. And because of that appreciation and realizing how technical it was, I was a fan instantly.
Well,
and so I figured I'd want to work in this industry in some way. And like I said, a few years ago, a friend of mine stated that I had a good personality for ring announcing. And then that's when I made a go of it, of trying to reach out to people. And then that brings us to me sitting at the Lion Fight, Muay Thai Fight Night, and meeting Sonny Franco. And I owe a lot to him for helping me get where I am now.
You know, it's so funny that that was your path, because it really almost dittos my path. I started out in karate because back in the day there was no MMA gyms. Like you drive around, you'd see karate, you'd see taekwondo, but you would never see like a mixed gym. I started karate. I was really little. I never even followed through with it, but you know, I had interest in Power Rangers and stuff like that, and just the way that it evolved. You know, going to Blockbusters, running out of WWF WrestleManias to watch. You rent, you know, the UFC or whatever, and the Ultimate Fighter was just so groundbreaking. I think so many people really jumped on board with that, and it's still a tool that is used today. I mean, we're on our 26th season right now, about to find out who's going to be the next champ for that new females division. So now I kind of want to jump into some recent MMA news here with you, Peter. We just had UFC down in Brazil, and I was catching with you on Twitter about Colby Covington. I think that was what made the biggest stir this weekend in our sport. Yeah. So I gotta ask you, what was your take on Colby Covington?
Man, that is a tough call, because in any kind of conflict in life, and you and I both know this, being in any kind of business and personal relationships, there's three sides to a story. There's his side, and then the truth. So I don't really know what exactly has happened. I thought Colby was pretty harsh on the crowd, but then he did make a point to say that when he was in Brazil, I don't remember the exact quote, but it was something to the effect of people in Brazil were spitting at him, throwing bottles, and chanting, "You're gonna die." And I remember that was happening at a fight night previously in Brazil when Joe Rogan was interviewing one of the fighters during the weigh-in, and the crowd is chanting something in Brazilian Portuguese. And he asked the translator or someone nearby, what are they saying? And they informed him they were saying, "You're going to die." And Joe Rogan looked at the crowd and said, "That's not nice." So we don't know how often that is actually happening. We know that's Colby's side of the story. And if that's how he reacted in the cage post-fight interview-wise, I have to understand him and say I could see why that would piss off somebody, but I'm not excusing what he said, and that's probably not the route that I would go. You know, I'm a bit more of a purist. I like Colby's fighting style. I like what he does, but I really miss the days of when you had guys like Lyoto Machida fighting Randy Couture, or when Randy Couture fought Chuck Liddell, that sort of thing. I never got big into the trash talking, and so the trash talking really seemed to pick up in the sport because it's putting asses in the seats. You know, that's happened with Chael Sonnen, that happened with Conor McGregor. Tito Ortiz was doing that back in the day. And so that's not quite my cup of tea, but I see how it works. It does sell fights, and they are in the business of selling fights. So that being said, Colby seemed a little upset, understandably. But now, I haven't read up on this, but apparently there's some kind of drama going with him and his own teammates at American Top Team. Yeah. Apparently he's saying something where he's upset with Carlo Laborio. I didn't catch what he said, but I follow very closely the career of Ben Saunders, who's a UFC welterweight. And those of you who don't know, Ben Saunders was on season 6 of The Ultimate Fighter. It was Team Matt Serra against Team Matt Hughes. He was on Matt Serra's team. And I've never met Ben in person, but I love his character. I love his fighting style. And he's followed me back on Twitter. He's responded to me on Facebook. And he made some very direct posts on Facebook towards Colby about what he would like to do as far as challenging him, fighting him in the octagon. And he's also did another, what I phrased as a very well-articulated post today. I just read it less than an hour ago. And he just explained how he felt about everything that Colby said. And he said he understood maybe he's just being a hill, like I highlighted earlier. Maybe he's just trying to put asses in the seats, sell fights. And if it was just fake and a build-up, he understands. But if what he was saying, as far as that was disparaging certain people at American Top Team, that he was not down with that. And so that's really interesting to see how that's going to unfold. And, you know, who knows, maybe that'll be a grudge match that they'll put together. I don't know. It would be really interesting. But that's news in the sport as far as what happened at UFC Sao Paulo, for sure.
You know, it's so crazy because it seems like every time Damian Maia fights down in Brazil, I mean, let's think of last time he was fighting Matt Brown. The crowd attacked Matt Brown last time he was down there. Even at the weigh-ins, they were all screaming at him, and he actually had his back turned to take a selfie of the crowd because the crowd was just so huge, and everyone started booing him. So he gave everybody the finger. I'm sure a lot of people will remember that. So, you know, after the fight or whatever, everyone was trying to grab at Matt, and you know, even on his walk to the octagon, people were grabbing his hat off. He got attacked down there.
Yeah, didn't like someone take a shot at him or shove him as he's walking into the octagon before the fight even started?
One of his old teammates after the fight got arrested for attacking him one day after the fight. So this is like an ongoing thing with Damian Maia and going down to Brazil. And unfortunately, he didn't win this time around. So I got to ask you, did you think that Colby Covington was going to win? I also have another thing to say about this, but did that surprise you? Because I think it surprised a lot of people out there.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, I have not followed Colby's career closely. The only thing I knew about him is that he was going nuts on Twitter, talking a lot of trash. And if I had seen one of his fights, I could not remember it. So, but because of his ranking and because of what Damian Maia is capable of, I figured I kind of picked that Damian Maia would get him down at some point and submit him. And then I was amazed the way Maia came out and was just throwing leather right away.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, he's really busting up his face. And I'm thinking, wow, Damian Maia's striking looks a lot better since the Tyron Woodley fight. That was my first thought.
So, yeah.
And then it was just going back and forth, it looked like, but it looked like Colby kind of found his rhythm in the second round, and it looks like he dominated rounds 2 and 3 with the striking. And Damian Maia could never get him down. I guess Colby has great defensive wrestling. That was my take on it.
You know, I think it's crazy that Damian Maia came out like that myself, and it makes me a little nervous that if that's what Damian Maia was able to do and land some leather, you know, land some things on him, as you know, Curtis would say, or whatever, or Shannon Sharp. You know, it makes me nervous. What would Tyron Woodley do to Colby Covington? So, you know, I am scratching my head wondering about that fight, or maybe he'll even get the winner of Wonder Boy versus Masvidal for UFC 217. But, you know, we know this saying goes way back. Whether it's good publicity or bad publicity, it's publicity. People are paying attention, and that's what's going on with Colby Covington right now. So, you know, I think a lot of people are interested, or will have, you know, a certain interest to, you know, whether they want to see him get his ass kicked or see him win in there. Because, frankly, I'm surprised that he got past Damian Maia. I've interviewed Colby before in the past. He's a great guy. He's hilarious, and he has been voicing himself out. We're seeing a lot of fighters like you brought up. So, you know, hats off to Colby Covington, because I think that was one of the biggest takeaways of the weekend, next to Lyoto coming back. And I do have to say this, Peter. I don't think the UFC should ever market another poster with she's back, he's back, they're back. Anytime they do that, it seems like the fighter always lose, whether it's Ronda Rousey using she's back or BJ Penn, and now we got, you know, the Dragon, unfortunately.
Yes. You know, they're building up the hype. They're trying to sell the tickets. Yeah, I'm not a fight promoter. I'm not a professional marketer, but I do see your point. It's a very good point. I mean, I'll just give you an example. If you remember, and I'm not saying I'm a mind reader, but if you remember, every time after Ronda Rousey would win a fight, you would see Dana White interviewed backstage by whatever Fox Sports personality. And, you know, his demeanor was like, when they say, what did you think of Ronda? His demeanor in response was something along the lines of, yeah, she was fantastic, man. That girl's badass. She really knows how to fight. She does a great thing. Oh, it was fantastic. And he's all smiles, right? Well, if you remember, after Holly Holm won the title off Ronda, when Dana was being interviewed backstage, he just had this look on him like, oh, yeah, she really knows how to fight. She picked apart Ronda. But there wasn't a whole lot of smiles there, because Ronda Rousey was a big pay-per-view seller. She was making him money. So I can understand if he's a little let down by that. I'm kind of a Holly Holm fan because I really love her striking.
And imagine if she beats Chris Cyborg, if that fight gets set up, That would be crazy. Two of the most feared athletes in female mixed martial arts, Ronda Rousey and then Chris Cyborg. Holly Holm, if she defeats her, wow.
I want to see that fight. I absolutely want to see that fight. They both love to strike. They're well-rounded, and I think someone's going to sleep in that fight.
You know, years ago it was said that they would never have females, in the UFC, and I'm so happy they did because I'm loving every second of it. And now with that fight looming in the background, just the whole end of 2017, I'm really looking forward to here. We got UFC 217 coming up this weekend, so I'm really looking forward to that. But Peter, I was going through your Twitter page, man, and I saw it was I don't know if you've used them before, but these things called dude wipes, and I have to ask you, what the hell are those?
That's the same thing I thought when I first saw dude wipes on a fighter's shorts years ago. You know, it's just a prepackaged wipe with some type of moisturizer and some type of oils and whatnot. It's just to help you wipe down after a workout. They're not an official sponsor of mine, but dude wipes, if you're listening or watching, I enjoy your product. If you want to talk sponsorship, hit me up, Fight Night Voice at Twitter, Fight Night Voice at Instagram. But it was fantastic because I used it after I was out for a run for the day, and I wiped down myself because I didn't have time for a shower, and I had to go out and meet some friends later. And it kind of took care of me just in the sense that it just cleaned me up a little bit quick because I didn't have time for that shower. Took 20 seconds to use the dude wipes. Felt fresh, and it worked out well.
You know, Kevin Lee probably should have got himself some dude wipes. Maybe he wouldn't have had that staph infection.
Oh, I can't believe you went there.
Well, you know what? Like, athletes, they really need to keep up with their hygiene. So, you definitely want to have – and, it's kind of girly. So, the name Dude Wipes kind of fits really well. So, I definitely check them out on your page. Yes. But, Peter –
And what I actually do, I forgot to tell you, as far as my martial arts background, mind you, I'm a very novice martial artist, if you will, but I do very, very basic jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai kickboxing. But I keep a generic brand of tea tree oil wipes. Some other brands try to sell their wipes that are a little bit more expensive and that just contain tea tree oil, but I just buy a more generic brand, and I just use them to wipe down after a class if I've been rolling on the mat or if I don't have time for a shower. Most of the time I do, but that's just something to do because a lot of those products have tea tree and eucalyptus oil, and I just use that to wipe down after the gym, and I got to head out if I'm not going to be able to shower at home for like another half hour or so.
Yeah, I wanted to get into what projects that you're working on right now. I know that you got the the fight announcing. So are there any events that you have upcoming that people will be able to see you at?
There's nothing on the books as far as what's coming up, but what I can tell you for sure what I've done is I've hosted a few events working with the aforementioned Grappling X. And if you want to check them out for jiu-jitsu tournaments up and down the state of California, they're at grapplingx.com, I believe. And they also have a YouTube channel. Just look up Grappling X. The last event I did with them was in Wildemar, California. It's right by Temecula, Murrieta area for people that know that area in the Southland. And that was September 23rd for their youth super fight. So it's grappling only, no striking. It was for an under-18 super fight. So it wasn't a bracketed tournament. It's just where kids from various gyms take on each other. So I have that. And then also I hosted a Muay Thai fight night for Whirlwind Fighting Promotions in San Francisco, California. And that was a IKF sanctioned fight night, excuse me. And there was a title fight, which was fantastic. It was for the California State Amateur Super Heavyweight Muay Thai title. One of the guys weighed in actually at 323 pounds.
Wow. See,
it was nuts. So, yeah, that's what I had recently. Oh, and then also I forgot to say thank you to Douglas Edwards for that. He's a promoter. He started Whirlwind Fighting Promotions. It was for a fight called Contenders League. And then what I just did shortly after that, in September in Las Vegas, I was at the Mr. Olympia Bodybuilding and Fitness Expo, and I emceed boxing and martial arts demonstration exhibition.
That's awesome.
And there were folks out there from Hawaii Boxing, a great gym in Las Vegas. They came from Hawaii. It's called Hawaii Boxing. And you can catch them on Instagram, actually. They post a lot of content there. Just look up Hawaii Boxing. So that's what I've been doing lately. but I'm also making myself available for where anyone does need an MC, a fight announcer, or host, or something to that degree. I've been speaking with powerlifting promoters and things of that nature. So absolutely, if anyone wants to know more, get at me. Feel free to email me. The email is thosearefightingwords@gmail.com, and I can send you some samples of my work. So that's what's going on, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a fantastic ride.
And you're located...
Oh, and also, I should just say one more thing. With doing that announcing in Las Vegas, I got to give a shout-out also to Mike Chu of Havoc Gym in Sacramento for helping set that up for me. And go ahead. What was your next question, Eddie?
I got to say, man, you're located out in California, right?
Yes, I'm in San Francisco.
So before I let you go, you brought up the whole Muay Thai thing, meeting Sonny Franco at Muay Thai fights.
Yes.
If there's anybody out there that is, just getting into MMA and you're like, I don't really understand what's going on the ground, you like more of the stand-up, go check out a local Muay Thai show. It's always a lot of fun. I always bring my family down, because they don't really understand what's going on the ground sometimes. They want to see the stand-up action, the kick, more the kickboxing style. So anyone out there, you should definitely go check out a local Muay Thai show. And Peter, I want to thank you so much for coming on Pure Evil MMA. I know that you got a really busy day ahead of you out there. So, before we let you go, is there anything else that you want to get out there?
Let's see. Actually, Eddie, I just have a question for you because I'd like to get your thoughts. We didn't quite touch on this.
Okay.
Because you were talking about UFC using posters that say he's back or she's back. What do you think? I thought you were going to ask me, but I'm just going to ask you. I'm going to play interviewer for a second.
All right, I love it.
What do you think the future? What do you think the future holds for Lyoto Machida? What do you think is next or should be next for him?
It was kind of tough knowing that he was coming back to fight somebody like Derek Brunson, who's really picking up confidence after his last fight where he just got a knockout over Dan Kelly. So I was a little surprised there. You got a guy coming back after almost 2 years away from the octagon. Now, I don't know what he was up to, whether he was trying to stay sharp. I don't even know if I even believe in ring rust, but it was just a surprise that they didn't give him, like a warm-up, a heater kind of warmer-up, or like they do in boxing.
Sure. A fighter. I am not a professional coach or a fight promoter, but I'll tell you, when I saw Lyoto Machida get knocked out by Luke Rockhold, I don't know if you remember, shortly before he got knocked out, toward the end of the first round, he took an elbow to the side of the head, which I think he said he felt on the back of his head a bit. I just remember seeing that elbow land and sitting there cringing, thinking, ouch.
This is the third loss in a row now.
It's really hard to see fighters go through that, and he suffered a bad knockout, and then we saw what happened in the next fight when he got knocked out by Yoel Romero, cold. It was really bad. And then after seeing this with Brunson, I don't know where the level of his chin is. I just get worried when I see that happening. But like you said, I don't want to necessarily see him turn back. I love watching him fight. I love his style. But I get worried when guys are taking bad knockouts after a while. We see that happen, and then we have to think about safety. But I'm always down to see him fight. So there's that tough dilemma we're in as fans,
It's scary because this is the elite level. I mean, this is, top-notch guys that are active, like Derek Brunson, who's just been fighting every, 6 months now. So I was just a little surprised that they matched him up with him to make him come back. Even when they matched Ronda up with Amanda, I was like, is that a smart idea? And we saw what unfolded there. But then sometimes it works, like the Korean Zombie making his return against Dennis Bermudez. He was away for 2 years, comes out and gets one of the best knockouts in 2017. So this is why it's hard to think about ring rust.
Yeah, you just never know. Some people say that ring rust is real. Some people say they don't believe in it. And like you said, you just don't know what's going to happen if someone comes back. By the way, you were asking if there was anything else I wanted to share. Can I please share with you my Matt Serra phone conversation story?
Oh, please do.
Okay, so my Matt Serra story is that I was a big fan of him because when he was on The Ultimate Fighter Season 4, The Comeback. And so, since he won the finale, he got a shot at the welterweight title, which at the time was held by George St. Pierre. So, I figured, when he's getting ready for the fight, it's about 6 weeks before his fight, I'm just a fan, I'm nobody. I wasn't working in the industry at the time. I'll call up his gym. I called up his gym, Sarah Jiu-Jitsu, and a guy just answers the phone. I say, hi, it's Matt there. And he says, oh, no, he's not here. So I figure, like any business, he's got a voicemail set up, something he can transfer me to as far as the voicemail box. So I said, okay, does he have a voicemail? The guy says, you can try his cell phone. I said, oh, okay, what is it? He gave me the number like it was nothing. So I take the number. I thought about it for about a minute or two. I thought, should I do it? Should I do it? Then I said, yeah. So I called the number. It's ringing. It's ringing. I'm very, very nervous because I figure Matt Serra's going to say, man, who the hell are you calling me? I don't know you. So I get his voicemail. I'm like, oh, my goodness, that's his voice. So I start leaving a message saying, Mr. Serra? My name's Peter Christensen, and I'm a big fan of yours. And I just saw you on Ultimate Fighter Season 4. I really loved your character. And I just wanted to wish you all the best with your fight against GSP. I understand if you're in the middle of camp, blah, blah, blah. I figure I'm not going to hear from him. I programmed his number into my phone, and I'm just chilling there at home. I was actually doing a workout. I was doing some push-ups, I remember. And I look at the phone. It's ringing. It's Matt Serra. And so my heart rate just started skyrocketing because I thought he was going to be pissed off when I answered. So I answered the phone very timidly, literally going like, hello?
I could see it, yeah.
And literally this is what he says. Hey, is this Peter Christensen? I said, yes. He says, what's up, dude? It's Matt Serra.
Sounds just like him.
Oh, yeah, he was cool. He's like, hey, thanks for calling, bro. That was fucking cool. He was the coolest guy. We talked for about 20 minutes.
I could see he's like one of the most laid back, out there characters in MMA.
Yes, very much. He's very, very goofy. He likes to crack jokes just like me. But, man, he's just a character, and he's a hard-ass, and I love that guy.
That was a good...
I never met him in person.
That was...
I hope I get to one day. He wouldn't remember me because that was literally 10 years ago. But what was really wonderful, I don't know if you remember on the show, he had a conflict with the grappling coach named Mark Lehman. And Mark Lehman was going out of his way often to trash talk in particular, Royce Gracie, and about how he got beat by Matt Hughes.
And Matt trains. Doesn't Matt train with? Isn't he under?
Henzo.
Yeah, he's under Henzo. I'm sorry, Henzo follows Pure EVil MMA. I don't know why I was even drawing that blank there. Yeah, he's under Henzo.
Shouts out to Henzo Gracie, by the way, because he followed me back on Twitter. I love Henzo Gracie, and the one time I met Henzo, he was incredibly gracious. Very cool dude.
Yeah, he's awesome. He's definitely a cool dude.
And so when Matt had that conflict with Mark Lehman, he called him out on it. It was really cool. But the segment was only about 2 or 3 minutes long. And so I asked him on the phone, and this is what I loved about how real he was being. I said, okay, Matt, I really like how you spoke your mind in regards to that issue. But between you and me, can you tell me, was any of that doctored in any way? I know how reality TV works. And he literally says, oh, fuck no, bro. I said a lot more shit than that. They edited all that out.
Took all the good stuff out.
Yeah, I know. I want to see the unaired footage.
Absolutely crazy. Every season just got crazier and crazier. Then Rampage ends up ripping doors apart in the later seasons. 26 seasons later, man, and we still have GSP about to fight this weekend.
I know. I mean, he's been in the game forever.
You're talking about the winner of season 4.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, GSP, before he won the title, he was a guest coach on season 4.
Crazy, man. It's just so crazy. That was a really good idea how they did that comeback season. Anyone who hasn't seen that season, definitely, if you have UFC Fight Pass, go back and see that season. Even the one that we were talking about earlier in the interview with Tito Ortiz and Frank Shamrock. I think that was season 2.
Ken Shamrock.
Yeah. Yep. I think
that was great. That was great. But season 4 was one of the best seasons. But the first one is always going to be epic. I have that on DVD. I still watch it. But I think the one for me was season 6 that featured Ben Saunders. It was Team Matt Serra versus Team Matt Hughes.
Yeah. Yep. There's a lot of good seasons. And Matt Hughes is getting a lot better, thank God. He's making a really quick recovery. But you know what, Peter, that was a really good freaking interview of Matt Serra. If you called in my show using the Matt Serra voice and told me it was Matt Serra, I would have believed it. I think all of our listeners probably would have believed it too.
You know what the funny thing is? I have not done anything with this, and people tell me to work this in the ring announcing or emceeing, but I do various celebrity impersonations.
They should just hire you to do both Matt Serra's voice and your own, and then just say Matt Serra's there. Then they got, killed two birds with one stone.
That would be...
there you go.
That's dangerous territory we're getting into. I'm afraid I might get a knock on my door from Matt Serra. I don't know if I want to go there. But I do like doing his voice, and I'm sure he appreciates it.
Yeah, I might have to get you recording and say, hey guys, this is Matt Serra, and you're listening to Pure EVil MMA. You just do it so good. But, Peter, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I had a lot of laughs with you. We definitely have to have you back on again. And, since it's the Halloween episode, I have to leave you with this one last question. What's your favorite Halloween movie? And, what did you do for Halloween?
Oh, man. Of all the questions to hit me with, you know what? I have not gone out for Halloween in years. So I really can't say that I did anything outside of the ordinary.
Well, usually for older guys like us, we just watch Halloween movies, pretty much. That's our Halloween.
Yeah, you know what? I got kind of burned out on it, but what I did enjoy, they weren't Halloween movies, but I'll say this, I did enjoy Scream.
The MTV series or the actual movies?
Oh, no, sorry. No, the movie with Nev Campbell.
Yep. They have all those on HBO.
Actually, what I do like to watch, I know we're going off a little bit, I liked Scary Movie, which was the spoof on all the horror films.
Yeah, they got that on Netflix too. They got Scary Movie too. Matter of fact, really funny thing, when that first movie came out, Scary Movie, I think I was in 4th grade, and it was rated R at the time. Yeah. I made my grandmother bring me to the movies, and it was like a lesson in sexual education, man. I don't think my grandma knew what she was in for. And looking back on it, man, it's so funny. So my dad was like, you made your grandmother sit there through this? I was like, I had no idea we were going to see stuff like that. I didn't even know guys can do that.
Yeah. Hey, sexual education. You know that herb that people take for memory? Ginkgo biloba?
No, nope.
Oh, okay. It's not as common now. So ginkgo biloba helps memory. So what I've been telling people is that my grandfather can't afford Viagra, so I buy him ginkgo biloba so he can remember what it's like to be erect.
That's a good one.
I have to give credit to Ron White for that.
That's a really good one. Well, Peter, I want to thank you so much for coming on Pure EVil MMA. Before we let you go, is there any shout outs or anything before we sign off here?
Yes, just once again, got to say thanks to Douglas Edwards of Whirlwind Fighting Promotions. Thanks to Sonny Franco, ring announcer. Oh, and also, of course, the Grappling X, Corey Cass. That's his organization. And also give a shout out to the timekeeper, Terry Burton. It was fantastic working with him at the Muay Thai Fight Night for Whirlwind Fighting. And Terry Burton's actually a great timekeeper. He does a lot of the Bellator events, among other things. Oh, and referee Dan Bam Bam Stell.
The unsung heroes.
Yes. And, I got to say thanks to Evil Eddie, too, having me on.
Yeah, man, we definitely have to have you back on here for Pure EVil MMA and MyMMAnews.com. Thank you so much, Peter. I'll talk to you soon, man. All right, so moving forward here, I just want to give you guys a quick reminder before we jump into any MMA news, because there was a lot of MMA news going down this week, that you guys should definitely jump in on Twitter during fight night. I'm always live tweeting with everybody. It's such a great community on there during the fights. Always find these little golden moments where you just crack up about with everybody on Twitter. So make sure you guys are following and using the hashtag at UFC or hashtag UFC 217 tomorrow night. I'm going to be at a fight party, but don't worry, guys. I'm going to be doing the recap. You do not have to worry about that. I'm always covering the recap here at Pure EVil MMA. So let's jump into some MMA news that has been circling around, and then we have UFC 217 to talk about. All right, so to lead the MMA news segment off, some of you guys might be a little upset about this. So I'm starting off with some Conor McGregor news. But UFC just announced that they are coming out with UFC 3 and just released the latest cover photo, which is usually two fighters. Usually have a guy and a girl. Last time it was Ronda and Conor. Now there was a curse that was going around. As soon as the video game came out, you had Conor that lost, you had Ronda that lost. So there was that curse behind it. Well, now they just released one fighter, and who could it be? We were all thinking, who could they put on the cover of EA Sports? Colby Covington, I was just talking about it on the last show. When I did my interview with him a few months back when he was trying to get that fight with RDA, he was saying that they did all the tests for him to be in the video game, set him up with all the little dots on him, check out his fight movements and stuff like that. Hopefully it wasn't like this. But, they didn't even add him into the game. Now that he beats Damian Maia, there's no way they are not adding Colby Covington into the game. But that's beyond the fact. We wanted to know who's going to be on the cover. I suggested maybe have Chris Cyborg on the cover, or Joanna on the cover, even Amanda Nunes on the cover, who just beat Ronda Rousey, who just beat Valentina Shevchenko. Maybe not the most exciting fight against Valentina Shevchenko. What guys can you put on there? Conor McGregor, obviously one of the first names that pops up, but he was on it for the last one. So are they going to give it to him again? Clearly they did. I thought you could have given him Michael Bisping. You could have put Bisping, Cody Noliv on there. You do have UFC 217 in the lurk. It is a little time before the game is going to be coming out. But check this out, and I have to give a huge shout out to Justin Golikli. I can never pronounce that kid's name right. But he says, take a look at this, and take it as you will. But in the 12-second teaser of EA Sports UFC 3, the last flash is Conor McGregor facing off with Tony Ferguson. Now here's a little clip. You guys can see it on the video cast. But for the podcast, I will release that footage on the Twitter page or on the Facebook page for you guys. But take it as you will, like he says. Does this mean that EA Sports knows something that we don't? We're going to have to wait and find out. But earlier in the week, Conor's coach, Kavanaugh, saying Tony Ferguson might be the path that they are going to be looking to take. So I wouldn't be mad about that. I think that's, now that there's been some time settled in between, I'm liking this idea of Conor versus Tony Ferguson. Not only is he going to be defending the title, but on top of it all, it looks more like a fight that Conor can win. I mean, there are people that argue that he didn't beat Nate Diaz. Nate has a win over him, of course, with the rear naked choke. Conor has a win via decision. To a lot of people, it doesn't mean much to them. They want to see Conor get a finish. They want to see him fight Nate Diaz. But I mentioned it before, guys. That fight's not going anywhere. Tony Ferguson, he is now the interim champ. You got to combine the belts. This has never happened before. When a fighter is usually injured is when they'll have the interim belt, not when there's an active fighter. It's just so weird. I do not like this whole interim thing that they've been doing, which is why I hope that EA Sports does know something that we don't. Let me know what you guys think about this on Twitter at evil_echo. That's EVIL_ECCO. All right, so moving forward, Juliana Pena announcing that she is pregnant, so she will not be fighting anytime soon, at least for the next 12 months at least. And this is a girl coming off a loss to Valentina Shevchenko. She was aiming for a fight with Ronda Rousey. Now you got a baby on board. Things are going to be changing. Your life decisions, you're going to have to really sit down and think, is fighting the future for you? This is the winner of the Ultimate Fighter, guys, her and Chris Holsworth. They were two little lovebirds on that season. I do not think this is a great time. I mean, congratulations to Juliana Pena, but I do not think this was a really good time for her to have a baby. I am not in charge of her career or anything like that. Like I said, congratulations, Juliana. But I really wanted to see her get back in there. But it is what it is. Fight game's not going anywhere. Hopefully she will be returning, and we wish her the best. All right, so there's something else that I wanted to bring up. I know it's kind of rewinding to a couple weeks ago. Everyone talking about Cowboy Cerrone. I know that he's on a consecutive losing streak, and he's never been on a consecutive losing streak before. This is a guy who's been fighting for so long, and usually when he loses one fight, he'll come back, get a win. Well, lately he's been on a 3-fight losing streak, and I've been seeing a lot of people out there wondering if he should continue. Here's my argument, and you'll never hear me say a fighter should retire, but here is my argument for this. His last fight, yeah, he did lose, but let's rewind one more. Versus Robbie Lawler. That was a fight some people thought Cowboy won. He was not finished in that fight. I do not think that Cowboy Cerrone should be thinking about retiring. It is 3 in a row. It is a tough thing. He has been knocked out a few times. I just don't see him retiring. I think he's just been fighting so much. He's been so active. Has he really had any time to recover? Should he stay at this weight class? There's some changes that need to be made. And now I was on board with this whole him changing weight, moving up to welterweight. I'm not a fan of it right now. He just doesn't seem like he fits in this weight class. We were hoping that we were going to see a diminished Cowboy Cerrone here. Unfortunately, he needs to figure out the right way to cut weight, move back down to lightweight. I think that's where he's going to find the most success. Hopefully moving forward, take your time. But, for everybody out there saying that he should retire, I am not on board with that. I do not agree there. You should have, a couple flags raised when a fighter like this is on a 3-fight losing streak, but it is the fighting game. Either win or you lose, but when they lose the way that Cowboy did against Darren Till, which to a lot of people aren't very familiar with, it's scary. It's a scary thought. But in my opinion, he's nowhere near retirement right now. At least in my opinion. I might be wrong. Let me know what you guys think on Twitter at evil_echo. That's EVIL_ECCO. Before we jump into UFC 217, I got one more guest coming your way, guys. So let's jump right into that. All right, guys, welcome back to Pure EVil MMA. I got a special guest for us here today who's actually going to be on one of the UFC cards coming up at UFC 218 in Detroit. We got Bobby Wombacher coming back on the show for the second time, maybe even the third time at this point. Bobby, what have you been up to since the last time we spoke? And my first question to you really, before we jump into it, is how far ahead of time do you know that you're working an event?
This one they notified me back in the beginning of September, so a couple months generally.
So there's been a lot of weird stuff going on in MMA. I gotta scratch your head about a lot of things. So I'm really happy that you're joining me here today. But what have you been up to since last time we spoke? What changes in your life? You got a new place to live in? What have you been up to before we jump into the whole MMA thing?
Yeah, since last time we talked, I moved back to Utah. Got closer to the kids. In a new relationship with somebody special. I'm not gonna get into that right now, but.
How often do they have you running around from place to place working?
Pretty frequently. This weekend I'll be in South Dakota. I go around pretty frequently.
It's almost like being a trucker. I mean, what's some of the places that you've been, just to update our audience that maybe not be familiar with some of the refs and how much they really have to do, because you guys really are the unspoken heroes of MMA. I don't think they realize that you guys actually have a home life and that you guys travel an awful lot.
Yeah, I've actually reffed in 27 different states, and there's only a handful of refs that actually ref outside of their home state or maybe their next state. But I've been blessed to actually ref in 27 different states, so I'm pretty blessed with that.
I mean, you look at like Big John McCarthy. I'll be at line fights or something, and then Big Dan. These guys are flying out to Vegas to the East Coast, back and forth, like all different days. It's just really hectic. I don't know how a lot of you guys do it. And really, the real unspoken heroes are your guys' girls, or husbands or wives or whatever in your family. So it's nice that you're back in Utah, close to the kids. But really popular thing going around last week with the fights over there in Poland. I don't want to be too specific, but I want to scratch your head on what are the designated areas for cornermen, and what really are the rules for what you can and cannot do outside of the ring if you are part of the team.
Sure. I don't know about it in Poland, but I know in the states that I work, typically you can have 2 cornermen in the corner. They have to remain seated at all times, and it's a certain area. It's not like they can just have free reign. It's a certain designated spot where the corner is, and that's where their chairs will be. But they're not allowed to get up. They have to remain seated until the 10-second bell, and they can instruct their fighter, but they're not to yell out to the opposing fighter corner or anything like that.
Because the thing is, you got to keep in mind the fighter's safety as well. I'm sure 100% of the time, in case something very serious happens, someone has to rush into the cage. I'm sure there's a designated area for the medical team, because usually when I'm covering events, I'm about a good I'd say 4 feet away from the the ring or the cage or whatever it is. And I know, like, you can't move. You can be a VIP or whatever, but you really can't move. So have you ever seen anything like that before in the past? Cornermen trying to follow, their fighter around, or have you seen anything similar to that before?
Yeah, it happens. Typically, it happens mainly before the fight and then before they get in the cage. Once they're in the cage, generally the state commission and inspectors have directed the excess people out of the area, and they usually have pretty good control over the fighting area. So it usually doesn't interfere with the bout at all.
Is it usually the refs that are, making a halt to that, or isn't there usually somebody on the side, security or something, that should usually stop something like that?
Yeah, the off ref, usually there's 2 refs minimum at events. The ref that's not in the cage kind of helps watch the outside of the cage, make sure the corners stay down, make sure nobody comes up close to the judges, and he just helps the commission out with that.
I always wondered about, where Herb Dean goes after his fight, and then he has to come back in, what they're doing. So that's kind of cool to hear some behind the scenes here. So I was thinking about it. I was like, what questions have I not really asked Bobby or any of these refs before? And me and you have kind of spoke before in the past about what you guys do before the fighters go in there, kind of give them a heads up. But I had to ask you something. There's a lot of fights that maybe get called a little bit too soon. So I have a question. Before the fighters go out there, have you ever seen anybody been like, I might get in trouble, you should let it go on a little bit because sometimes I do bounce back? How do you respond to a fighter that does ask you if it is asked?
I do get asked that, and I give them the same response. I'm there for fighter safety, and I can't allow one fighter to take more damage just because they think they're more resilient. Everybody's judged on the same, scale. As far as fights getting stopped too soon, I don't know. I guess that happens, but for me, I'm not going to let one fighter take unnecessary damage just because that's what they think. They're fighters. Dana White had a thing today. I think it was today about the Mark Hunt situation.
Yes.
About having to protect fighters from themselves, and then that's the same thing for a referee. You'll get fighters that they'll go out on their shield, and that's all there is to it. They're fighters. So whenever you got to stop it, and they get irate and get in your face and all that other stuff, that's just that's them. They're a fighter. They don't ever want to quit. They don't ever want to lose. But as the official, it's our job to protect them at all times.
So are you guys also thinking about like pain tolerance when it comes to different weight classes, or even the female fighters, like how much pain they can really take before you got to call like a TKO or something? Does all that come into question?
It's not really about pain. It's about unanswered shots or not intelligently defending yourself.
Yeah.
They could be little hammerfish shots comparative to right hooks and stuff, but if they're not defending themselves, they're the same equivalent to getting a jab from your feet. So it doesn't really matter the amount of pain or anything. It's more, are they defending themselves? Because some people have a higher pain threshold, and they could take more. But if they're not defending themselves, then it's got to end.
So, Bobby, as people are listening to this, whether they're, tuning into our video cast, watching this, or listening to it on the podcast, I'm sure as, I'm going to be asking a couple more questions, they might think of a question of their own that they might want to ask you. So, can they reach out to you on Twitter?
Yep, I'm at Twitter at Bobby Wombacher, all one word.
So that's at BOBBYWOMBACHER, just in case you guys are tuning in to the podcast. Now, kind of... hang off of that last question, especially this weekend, we saw a lot of fighters talking to the crowd, and then we see some of the fans throw objects. Now, have you ever been in a situation where objects have been thrown inside the cage, and what do you do in a situation like that? Should you stop the fight, or do you wait for null in action? What do you do if something like that does happen?
It depends what's thrown in and where it's at. Just this last fight I did in Nebraska, they actually, I got a water bottle thrown in and hit me in the back during the middle of the fight, and you just kick the water bottle to make sure it's out of the way. And then because it's not the fighter's fault,
Yeah.
fans will be fans, and I'm positive security dealt with it, and I didn't even think twice about it. So that stuff does happen.
Also, talking about late calls and stuff like that. When something like that does happen, or you make a call that you're like, oh, maybe I should have made it sooner, or whatever happens. Who do you reach out to, or do people reach out to other referees to talk about it? I mean, how does that process go?
Well, I know for me, what I do is I talk to the referees that are at the event. After the fight, I will sit down and, if I have a question, I'll ask them and kind of get their opinion, pick their brain, and maybe even the judges as well. But typically, when I stop a fight, I'm pretty confident I did it at the right time. But there's always those times where you're like, well, did I let one shot go too many or two shots? And you'll ask the other officials and get their opinion. And sometimes, they're like, yeah, you probably could have stopped it sooner. Or they're like, no, that's perfect time. So you rely on the other officials.
Like my mom, she's a nurse. She has to take refresher courses. I went to EMT school. You're required to take refresher courses. I know that Herb and Big John do their courses. Are those also open to public? Like, I know there's a lot of people out there that are interested in judging or even officiating, reffing. Is those seminars, are they open to the public? And how often do you guys hold stuff like that?
They are offered to the public. Anybody can attend. It's very expensive. And the pass rate is very low because you got to be on the game to pass it. So, anybody could go to it, but that doesn't mean they're going to pass it or be, certified or whatever. But if they're willing to pay the money, and, depending upon which one you go to, it ranges anywhere from, $250 to $1,900 for the course.
So is that for reffing and judging, or just reffing?
Usually you choose if you want to do both, but they're held both at the same weekend. Usually one's a Friday or a Saturday, and then the other one's a Saturday or Sunday, and then it's done.
So I actually have this question further down, but since it relates, do you think referees should also, once they're retired or done doing that, do you think that they should be judges? Do you think they should switch over to the judging since they've been inside the cage or the ring?
A lot of us refs, we are licensed to judge as well. But for me, myself, I like staying focused on just one aspect and not, having to mess with the both of them. Because the thing about judging is it is very mentally taxing. I mean, you've got to be focused on every second of that fight. And people don't give those judges enough credit. I mean, it's very mentally taxing.
So are you familiar with the courses that the judges have to go through? Have you taken them?
Yep, I've passed them. And I judge local shows and stuff like that at times. And some of the times you'll be a ref and the other ref will be there, and the ref that's not in the cage will actually be the third judge. So, some of the commissions, that's how they work, and that's fine too.
But what are some of the things that you guys have to brush up on or really learn about before you can really get qualified?
Well, the big thing that a lot of people, can read about the rules and they can memorize the rules, and there's only 29 of them. So that's not the hardest part. Where it gets them is actually having to physically apply the holds and break them.
Field hours, right?
Yep. So like you'll draw. You got to do a Kimura. And you got to be able to explain exactly what you're doing. You got to be, where the pressure points are, and then more importantly, how to disengage it, disassemble it. So
I never even thought about that. So when you guys see new moves come out, Big Ben Rothwell a year ago, he was doing that go-go choke. You guys have to stay up to date on some of the new jiu-jitsu or Brazilian jiu-jitsu and some of these moves that are going around, because I never even thought about that. You guys have to disengage it.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to, anytime there's a new choke or something that gets around, the refereeing community, it circulates through there pretty quickly because, you don't want to ever be caught in a position where you don't know what's going on in there. And for the most part, most chokes all are a variation of the basic ones. So if you know where the carotid is getting cut off or, whatever it is, and you know where to put your arm to separate it so to create space, that won't change depending upon the variation of the hold.
So crazy, some of the stuff that you guys really have to be so alert in there. You guys don't get enough credit. My other question to you is, because the MMA fans are so brutal sometimes. Have you ever gone on your Twitter and just seen some wild questions or any backlash that you're just like, oh god damn it.
Yeah, I don't use Twitter that much. I just started using it again in the last couple of days. But yeah, I'll get a lot of questions on Facebook, and then some people even get bold enough they just post stuff on the internet itself, and sometimes you just shake your head, and if you don't give it life and let it grow legs, it dies off, especially if it's not warranted. So.
Yeah, I think it's really funny when you see some of the fighters coming out and attacking some of the trolls. There's all good fun in it. When you sign up for a platform where you're putting yourself out there, you got to expect that there's some wild people out there. So which leads me to my next question. Somebody brought this up to me at the bar the other night, and I was like, you know what? That's a great question. I got to ask Bobby this. Do you guys, after events, are there there's like firefighter bars, there's cop bars, are there referee bars? Like, do you guys all hang out at a referee bar?
No, a lot of us, we'll it's been what people don't understand, say for like the UFC event, we'll get there probably about 3:00 in the afternoon, and they go till 11 o'clock or whatever. So we're there all night essentially. So what we typically do is we'll go somewhere and get something to eat, and but not a lot of drinking. I don't drink at all, so I wouldn't partake in that. But mainly it's just we eat dinner together, or whatever, and unwind, and that's about it.
So are you allowed? Like, do they tell you? I mean, it's kind of a professional thing. Anyway, but not to like mingle with the fighters?
You mean after parties or before?
Anything, because if you guys become friends with them, it could be controversial to a lot of people sometimes. Is that kind of like the unwritten cardinal rule of it all? Is that why you guys, kind of stick close to one another rather than, mix with the fighters?
Sure. Well, MMA is really a small community, even as big as it is.
Yeah.
I've ref many of the fighters are in the UFC, and when I go there, they'll come up and they'll say hi, how you doing? So you kind of know them, but you don't want to hang out with them just due to conflict of interest. And you may not be doing anything wrong, but the perception from somebody else may be that you are. So as officials, we do distance ourselves from the mingling and hanging out stages. But that isn't to say that we'll be somewhere and a fighter won't be in the same restaurant or whatever, and they'll just come up and want to chat about the fight or whatever, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But typically, we don't go hang out with fighters. No.
Another good question that just kind of popped up is, sometimes you get you and the fighter are mingling for not the right reasons. Do you have to stay up on your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Do you have to take classes and stuff like that? Because sometimes fighters might backlash at you if you're, not happy with the call or something. Their blood pressure's going and their adrenaline's pumping. We've seen it before in the past plenty of times. So, do you kind of find it really important that, you kind of stay brushed up on your wrestling or what it is that's going to help you feel more confident if that situation does occur?
Yeah, you absolutely have to be on top of it. I mean, it's unpredictable.
Yeah.
Typically, I'll speak for the majority of the fighters that they know not to mess with the ref for numerous reasons. I mean, number one, they're going to lose their license, and depending upon what they do or whatever, they could lose their license permanently. So they wouldn't risk that. But they also know that most of us refs understand the fight game, and we're well versed in it, and they don't want to mess with us. I mean, I tell a lot of people, all I really have to do is neutralize somebody for 10 or 15 seconds, because by then the cage door is going to be open and there's going to be plenty of people to help. So, most fighters aren't going to do that. I've had a fighter get in my face maybe 2 or 3 times after a fight, but they quickly realize that that's not the forum to do it. And, like I tell all the fighters, if there's a problem with a call I make or you're unhappy with it, don't make a commotion out here. Let me know. I'll come back in the back and, I'll talk to you and your coaches and explain what I seen, why I did it, and kind of give them answers. Because, look, they've trained for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it is. They deserve a fair outcome, and they deserve to know why something happened. And so I'm more than happy to go back and, get with them and their team and explain it so that they understand and can move forward.
So another big thing I want to ask you before we let you go is, the whole eye poke thing. How many eye pokes do you think it should really be granted? Because we do see a lot of fighters, I shouldn't say a lot, but sometimes we do see fighters use it to their advantage. They know they can get away with one, maybe two. Well, what's your take on the whole eye poking?
It depends now with the new rule where you can't have your fingers outstretched pointing towards the face.
Yeah.
That eliminates a lot of it because right away you're already warning them. So then if there's an eye poke, you've already warned them in the back. You've warned them most likely in the cage. So it's not like, I didn't know. No, we went over that in the rules meeting. I mean, it's clear you cannot do that any longer. And then obviously the severity. If they got their hand out and the guy's leaning forward and it connects, that's a little different than him outreaching his hands and sticking his finger in his eye. So it depends on the situation, and there's a lot of variables. But I guess there's no hard, fast rule on how many till you get disqualified or a point taken away or anything like that. Just the variables that are included.
So we hear what you say when the fighters are coming face to face, and whether they decide to touch gloves or not, but we really don't see what happens behind the scenes. So can you give our audience a quick preview of what you say behind scenes to both fighters? Do you say it to them both at the same time, or do you grab them separately? How does that go down?
Well, that varies on the show you're at. So if you're at a local regional show, you typically do a group rules meeting where all the fighters and corners come in and you go through the rules. I like to go through what I'm looking for on submissions, verbal submissions, tap outs, open hand strikes, that will be considered a tap out, explaining everything to them. And then I cover all the rules. And then at the end of the group rules meeting, I go around to whatever fighters I'm reffing, and I'll go one-on-one with them and explain, ask them if they have any other questions, explain again the big things to me, like the back of the head, the grabbing of the cage, make sure they understand the new grounded fighter rules, the submissions, things like that. And then when you get to like your Bellators and your UFCs, they don't do a group rules meeting. It's all one-on-one. So you got to go to each individual fighter and, make sure they're ready to go and they understand, they don't have any questions. And, again, when I do the one-on-ones at the bigger events, it's the same sort of thing. I just go through the basics, what I'm looking for in submissions, go through the rules, the main ones, what I'm looking for. Ask them if there's anything that they have concern with or anything they don't know. Obviously, when you get to that level, they should know the rules. So it's more of just getting familiar and making sure they understand it and they don't have any questions about it.
What are some of the most common questions that you usually hear as a ref?
The big ones typically are centered around what a grounded fighter is, especially with the new rule with the two hands. Having the backs of the fists or the palms down. So you'll get that. Then in the amateur ranks, some of the states don't allow twisting leg submissions and elbows and stuff like that. So it's just answering those questions. But typically, a lot of it is about the grounded fighter.
So this is one of the most important questions. I wanted to save it to last. You just mentioned the new rules coming into play. How long until you think, more of the states are going to start signing on to it? Because it is confusing event to event, wondering if it's, more inclined to a 10-8 round for the judges or, like the hands and stuff like that. How long do you think this process is going to take before we see more states opening up to, the new rules that were laid?
That I don't know because it's all politically driven. So some states will never change it, and some are just dragging their feet or whatever the process is. But I'll go on the record and say it's not fair, to have different rules for different states. When like I said, I've reffed in 27 states, and one of the first things I have to do when I get there is, what rules are we using tonight? And for me, it's a little easier because I know typically all the states I work in now what they use. But for a fighter who goes state to state, if your training camp is 8 weeks and you've trained elbows and knees, and then you get to the venue and they're like, yeah, no elbows or knees, this is a grounded fighter or whatever. That isn't the time for a fighter to discover these things, because now you're going to send their mind track all sideways when they should be really focused on, getting in the cage and performing. And it's unfortunate. And I see a lot of fighters, second guess themselves in the cage, because they don't know. And, it's just unfair to the fighters.
So before we let you go, I know that you have this upcoming UFC event for UFC 218. What is it going to look like from today until you get out there? How many days ahead of time are you going to be, heading out to Detroit? And, what's your schedule pretty much look like?
Well, I got an event this upcoming weekend. And then after that, I just got a lot of interviews coming up, a lot of things like that. I will fly out December 1st, which is the Friday, probably in the morning. I'm assuming I've got I'm meeting with the Boys and Girls Club of Detroit. They're bringing all their Metro Detroit Boys and Girls Clubs together to one spot. I'm going to talk to them for a little bit on Friday night. Then I'll head back to the hotel, hang out. Saturday I'll relax in the morning and then get to the arena early afternoon and be ready to go.
And do you know what fighters you ref ahead of time? You don't have to tell us or anything if you're not inclined to, but how ahead of time do you know the exact fighters that you're going to be reffing?
Typically, it's when you get to the venue. I know Nevada, whenever they do theirs, they have to vote on the main event and co-main event usually, so the public knows who the ref and judges are for those. But for the most part, we all wait, and when we get to the arena, the commission will give you your assignments, and then you're ready to go.
What do you think about fighters having a say in, picking the ref? Do you think they should have somewhat of a say in it, or?
No. Because then you get a conflict of interest. You get the good old boys club. I think the commission signing them is the right way to do it, and it keeps everybody from any confusion or bias being played.
I agree with you there, Bobby. If there's anything else that you'd like to discuss, now's the time before we sign off here.
Yeah, go to my Facebook page. It's MMA referee Bobby Wombacher. You'll see a link on there as well. Go to Hornbuckle Warriors. That's on my page. I had a friend just pass away on Friday from leukemia and a few other things, and he's got some young children. So there's a place on there to donate some money if you can, to help out the family. I know that he's got 3 young kids, and one of them is only 6 weeks old, maybe. So, if you get a chance, go check it out. Read the story. Like I said, he just passed away on Friday. So, yeah, I'd like to see his family get helped out with that. But other than that, I'm excited and I'm appreciate being on.
Matter of fact, I think I saw a Bloody Elbow post an article with the GoFundMe account on there. So, you know what? I'll share that on the Pure EVil MMA Facebook page so it's a little easier for everybody to find. Make sure you guys are following Bobby on Twitter at Bobby Wombacher. That's BOBBYWOMBACHER. I'll share it on the Twitter page, guys. Thank you so much, Bobby, for coming on, and we wish you best of skill and safe trip once you get to Detroit in your upcoming event. Thank you for coming on Pure EVil MMA. All right, guys, so UFC 217 is going down tomorrow. Well, today, really, since it's November 4th, at Madison Square Garden, just right up the road here from Pure EVil MMA. But before we jump into that card previewing it, I just want to preview what we got for the rest of the year. Heading up after this event, UFC Live on FS1, Dustin the Diamond versus Pettis is coming up November 11th, so next weekend. And this is a really fun card. I mean, both these guys are ranked. Dustin the Diamond is ranked 8th. Showtime Pettis is ranked 13th. And if you guys remember from Pettis' last fight, we saw a glimpse of a young, confident Showtime Pettis. So can he carry it over against Dustin the Diamond? We will find out. Not only that, guys, but Matt Brown's final fight before he retires against Diego Sanchez. Great fight. Great fight pick for this one. Diego Sanchez, man, I think he's on the ups and ups as well, coming off a loss to Ally Aquinta. He's not in a position where he can really lose. Matt Brown not in a position where he can lose. So you know both these guys are going to be going at it thirsty as hell. I mean, Matt Brown coming off 3 consecutive losses in 2016. His last win stretching all the way back to July of 2015 against Tim Means. So it would be a wonderful thing to watch Matt Brown retire. But with the win over Diego Sanchez, man, I mean, I love everything about the matches, but you want to root for both of them. So this is definitely a hard one for me. Also on this card, we have Andrei Arlovski, who's also on that same ship there. So it does seem like this is kind of the card where guys really need to bounce back, or they're going to be leaving their hats inside the octagon on this one. So definitely a card that you guys do not want to be missing out. We're going to be previewing it as well. So make sure you guys are following it on mymmanews.com. All right, so November 18th, we have Fabricio Verdum against Marcin Tybura. That's going to be coming up November 18th. Also on that card, we got Beck Rawlings versus Jojo Calderwood and Tim Means versus Bilal Muhammad. Rounding out November, we have Anderson Silva versus Kelvin Gastelum for UFC Fight Night down at the Mercedes-Benz Arena November 25th. And then that gets us to the Ultimate Fighter Season 26 finale show, which is going to be announced very shortly as we round out the end of that one. But the one fight I'm really looking forward on that is Sugar Shane O'Malley. This fight card is going to be going down December 1st. And to end the year out, we have UFC 218. We have Cub Swanson versus T-City. And then December 16th, RDA versus Robbie Lawler. And then 219, December 30th. I am looking forward to it, but tomorrow, or today I should say, UFC 217 going down. Every fighter has made weight. GSP versus Michael Bisping. Cody No Love versus TJ Dillashaw. Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Rose Namajunas. Now, I reached out to everybody in the MMA community that follows me on Twitter and Facebook, and I asked everybody, what fight are you guys most looking forward to? It seems like everybody, almost everybody, at least a good 70% of people out there are really excited to see Cody No Love versus TJ Dillashaw, and this makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of newer fans I can tell out there that are like, this is one of the best rivalries in MMA, UFC history. I mean, in the new age, yeah, this is definitely, depending on how this really plays out. I mean, if Cody No Love goes in there and starches TJ Dillashaw, it could be a great run for Cody No Love. But if TJ Dillashaw goes in there and gets his belt back, I mean, this could start a real good rivalry right here. I'm loving the start of it. And just by the way that season 25 went, we had Cody No Love choking out TJ Dillashaw to start it off. I mean, these two really want the belt. They do not want to let go of it. Both guys used to train with one another. Most of us know the beef that went down at Team Alpha Male. Uriah Faber not happy with TJ leaving him. I mean, Uriah Faber pretty much raised TJ Dillashaw, after high school, after that season of Ultimate Fighter, really make him become the champion that he was. And then he brings in Dwayne Ludwig, who takes TJ Dillashaw out to Colorado. I mean, shit happens, man, but it makes the fight even more exciting because now it's gone up to a whole nother level. These guys are going at one another, saying that TJ Dillashaw is now using steroids, that Cody No Love knew that he was using steroids. Chris Holbrook called him out. Now, MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani. I mean, this is just getting crazy. The footage being released yesterday. I mean, I'm definitely interested in this fight. I cannot wait to see what happens. TJ Dillashaw is more of a guy that he likes to break the fighter down as the fight goes on. Cody No Love, on the other hand, one shot could drop you. TJ Dillashaw versus Renan Barão. If you go back and look at that fight, just break you down piece by piece. It almost reminds me of Cub Swanson's Beautiful Destruction. Just break you down piece by piece until you just can't stand anymore, until you're just so winded from just, TJ just pouring on. And with the way that he's been training with Dwayne, just the output that he's been, we really saw in the Dominic Cruz fight. He threw, 400 jabs, 400 strikes or something like that, and didn't land many of them, but just the output is just so much higher than it used to be. And the power, though, that's where a lot of you guys out there I see are taking a step back here, siding more with Cody No Love. They have 5 rounds to do it. You're leaning more with Cody, especially after his last fight against Dominic Cruz, one of the best fights in bantamweight history. I will definitely put my name on that one. Going back to the saying of move like water, my friends. Cody No Love fit that line perfectly in the fight with Dominic Cruz. He was just so fluent in there. I hope we see something like that tomorrow night, whether it's Cody or TJ. I don't know. You guys out there, seems like you're rooting for Cody No Love, but if not, let me know on Twitter at evil_echo. Then let's not forget about the other title fight, Joanna Jędrzejczyk versus Rose Namajunas. It's going to be going down. Now, there's a lot of people out there, including Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who is saying that Rose is mentally weak. We've seen before in the past that Rose is usually a big fan favorite going into all of her fights, even against Paige Van Zandt, against the Karate Hottie. I mean, you don't really see many people boo Rose Namajunas. The one time she lost as of recent was to Karolina Kowalkiewicz, and we just saw Joanna Jędrzejczyk dismantle Karolina. Rose has been going back to the gym, trying to put together, really trying to tighten up some of her footwork, some of her striking, her ground game's just on point. But Joanna Jędrzejczyk, her Muay Thai is just top notch. I don't know what to expect. I was going back and forth in my mind the last year if Rose Namajunas was ready for a title fight. And I said it after her last fight. After she beat the Karate Hottie with that amazing, dropped her with that leg kick, followed up by the submission. I think that she's ready. Now is the time, but now we're seeing a lot of people boo. Rose Namajunas, she dedicated this fight to mental health awareness. We all know where she stands with that. Her and Pat Barry going through the things that they've gone through before in the past. I don't need to remind anybody of. But, I'd like to see how Rose is going to react to, the crowd booing her and, how she's going to go in there confident. What kind of Rose Namajunas are we going to see show up tomorrow night? That's what I'm most interested in, because we can guarantee Joanna Jędrzejczyk's going to show up confident as ever. You see her just get up into her opponent's face. She's really trying to intimidate them. Is it going to work on Rose Namajunas? Is she going to be able to break her down? Is she going to be able to go in there and overwhelm her and just take her confidence away? We see this in a lot of fights. The more confident fighter is usually the one that is getting the step over on their opponent. As the fight goes on, Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she's been rocked before in the past. She has to be careful of Rose Namajunas. It's MMA though. Anything can happen. I might get shit for this. I'm siding with Rose Namajunas. I think Rose can get this done. I think she can win by submission. I do not think she will be able to go out, stretch it out to a decision win. I do think Joanna will be able to get the decision win. But Rose Namajunas, I do think that you could capitalize on just any tiny mistake that Joanna is going to make. And trust me, there are not going to be many of those that she's going to be able to take advantage of. So we're going to have to wait and see tomorrow, or tonight I should say, for UFC 217. GSP versus Michael Bisping. We're going to be reviewing that in a second, but there's one more fight that I want to discuss that really stands out to me. It's Wonderboy versus Jorge Masvidal. Now, this is a fight that really isn't getting much attention here. I mean, it's 3 title fights on this card. Wonderboy not having the most exciting performances as of late, but if we rewind just a year ago, Wonderboy had one of the most exciting hype trains as of recent years with the win over Johnny Hendricks, who's also going to be fighting on this card, who also made weight. So he really needs a win. Jorge Masvidal, on the other hand, is ranked number 4 in this division right now. I mean, a loss to Wonderboy who put him on a 2-fight losing streak. He did go to decision with Damian Maia. He needs this win. Is Wonderboy going to be able to come out on top? Is Masvidal going to be able to come out on top? Masvidal has been saying that he's been studying the Karate Kid nonstop. Wonderboy, we all know that he has that very solid karate background, and his striking and conditioning is top notch as well. He's also coming off a loss, and before that, coming off the tie to Tyron Woodley back at MSG. So, how is the crowd going to be, pumping up Wonderboy versus Masvidal? I would love to know what you guys think about this, because I haven't really asked much on Twitter or anywhere about this fight. So I really wonder where you guys are standing on this whole Wonderboy versus Masvidal fight. For me, I am leaning towards Wonderboy to get the W. Now that gets us into our main event. Michael Bisping, who's currently the champ, is going to be fighting George St. Pierre, who only has 2 losses his entire career. Now, his last fight against Johnny Hendricks 4 years ago, I would consider personally, I thought Johnny Hendricks did win that fight, but George did get the win on the judges' scorecards. That's all that really does matter. He is returning tomorrow night, and he has been killing it with the fights before that, beating Diaz, beating Carlos Condit, beating Jake Shields. I mean, this guy's career goes so far back. One of the best champions in UFC history. And 4 years away is a lifetime away. What can we expect? Are we going to see GSP go in there and wrestle Michael Bisping to the ground and just be the dominant GSP that we're used to, land a couple Superman punches, and just put on an amazing performance? Or are we going to see Michael Bisping have, a rocky first or second round and then be able to come back in the later rounds like we have seen in his last couple of fights. I mean, besides the Luke Rockhold fight. Michael Bisping, he goes in there, starts pretty slow, but as the fight goes on, he just warms up and looks better and better as the rounds go on. But if George St. Pierre can go in there and take his confidence away in the first round or two, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference on Michael Bisping. This is a guy that's going to ground you out until the end of the fight. He doesn't care that you're George St. Pierre. This is a guy that people aren't giving the credit to, that he thinks he is one of the greatest of all time. And for GSP to be jumping up to his division, it just really didn't make sense at first. I saw a lot of people out there just really not down with this fight. People were saying that this is the easier choice for GSP over Tyron Woodley. I don't know, man. Bisping's really been able to piece it together, especially against the older fighters like Anderson Silva, like Dan Henderson, getting the rematches and getting the wins over them. GSP returning, the whole conversation with Cage Rust again. I mean, I can have it again with you guys. I don't know whether I believe it or not. We just saw Lyoto the Dragon Machida go in there and lose, but at the same time, brought up earlier in the podcast with Peter. What about the Korean Zombie who came back this year after 2 years away? I mean, and that's only half the time that George has been away. But just after 2 years away, was able to come back and get that knockout win over Dennis Bermudez. I don't know whether I believe in ring rust. Look at Dominic Cruz getting the win over TJ Dillashaw, even though it was really close, like I said before. I don't know if I believe in ring rust. Apparently, GSP has been training for the past 4 years, but what does he really have to win? What is really driving inside of GSP? Is he coming back for the paycheck? Is he coming back just for recognition? And this is another thing that the UFC brought up. They were saying that they're going to have to reintroduce GSP to the audience, and it does seem like a lot of people out there. Let me say this. I brought this up, and I think this makes the most sense. In the past 4 years, I think that the fan base, the MMA fan base, has at least doubled in size. Now, before you jump down my throat, just hear me out on this one. My mom has her own pay-per-view parties. My little sister and father call me asking who's going to win this fight. What? I feel like I'm in the freaking Twilight Zone. At times, I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone. I really do. When you're a barber, when you're ice cream man, when your priest is asking you about Mayweather McGregor, or who's going to be winning against Robbie Lawler versus Cowboy, or what's going on with Mark Hunt, is Diaz going to be fighting Conor McGregor, what's going on with this Colby Covington character, it just blows my mind. 4 years ago, you didn't have that. I mean, the last time I really saw MMA this big was when I was in high school in that first season of Ultimate Fighter, like me and Peter were just talking about. I really do believe that the fan base has doubled now, and GSP, if he can go in there and get a win over Michael Bisping, it could be huge. But if Bisping gets the win over GSP, that really puts him in such a great position for people to talk about one of the best title runs in that division. Let's face it. Look at the run that he went on. Now, you might not give it credit because there are a lot of fighters that are, you could say, over the hump, like Anderson Silva. He's not the Anderson Silva of yesterday after that Chris Weidman fight. The Luke Rockhold argument, I don't really believe that. How could you say that about Luke Rockhold? I'm not buying the whole Luke Rockhold thing, especially after his performance against David Branch. I mean, he did have a rough first round, but he was able to piece it together in the second and get the finish. Dan Henderson, on the other hand, Michael Bisping was getting punished in the first round. We almost saw a glimpse of the logo go down again with the H-bomb. Michael Bisping was able to come back from behind and stretch it out, get the win, even though that first round could have been a 10-8. Michael Bisping, man, the run that this guy has been on, you can't ignore it. And with him on FS1 as commentator, really finding his voice now. I mean, back in the day, I knew a lot of people that just weren't down for Michael Bisping, especially on that season Ultimate Fighter with Mayhem Miller. I mean, I loved that season, but even going back all the way when Michael Bisping popped up on the Ultimate Fighter as one of the contestants, people just weren't down for the shit talking. Some of the things that he's had to say, spitting at people. He's a character, man, and I think it just adds to the whole excitement of it. There are people out there that need that to feel excited about fights. They need a character that drives a storyline, and Michael Bisping is that, and that's what I really enjoyed about this matchup of GSP versus Michael Bisping. I didn't look at it as this is an easier fight for GSP. I didn't look at it as this is an easier fight for Michael Bisping. I looked at it like this is the two perfect characters to stretch out both of their stories. If GSP can come back at Madison Square Garden, I do not know why they didn't have the return in Canada for him. The energy would have been amazing, but MSG, it's right up there with Canada. It really is, if not better. But when GSP shows up to Canada, we know how that the crowd reacts. But coming over to the East Coast, man, GSP is a huge symbol of mixed martial arts across the globe. So, New York is not much further than Canada. What do you guys think is going to go down? I could see GSP just wrestling Michael Bisping and getting the win, really not giving Michael Bisping much of a chance. Or I could see Michael Bisping really taking advantage of GSP. We might see a slower GSP. His timing might not be there. Here's the thing. I don't know what to expect. I really don't. You can watch the pre-workouts, the open workouts. You can watch all the UFC embedded. You could hide in the closet at the gym. You will not know what happens until GSP steps foot in the octagon. He smells the Vaseline and beer and chicken. You don't know what's going to happen until the lights are really on him. And this is the guy before in the past who admits that he's nervous before fights. He's just as normal as me or you, so I don't know what to expect. I am leaning towards GSP to win this. I do think Michael Bisping could definitely beat GSP. Especially if GSP goes in there and he's a little slower. He's a little rustier. Or GSP can go in there and just dominate Michael Bisping. What do you guys think is going to happen? Let me know on Twitter at evil_echo. Let us know at mymmanews.com. I'm Evil Eddie, guys. Thank you so much for joining the podcast, whether you're tuning in on iTunes, Podbean, or even watching the video cast. Thank you so much. Subscribe down below, and make sure to check out the recap show at mymmanews.com. And last of all, guys, behave yourselves.